All right, so the overall goal of the rest of this lesson is to try to answer these two questions. Does correlation mean causation? And what do you think causation means? And that is a question that statisticians are always trying to determine. All right, does correlation mean that causation is going to happen? That because there's a strong relationship, it causes one of them to happen? And just looking at the idea of what causation is. Now, you guys answered some questions a second ago about Alonzo and Richard. So proving causation is challenging. The scenarios Alonzo and Richard analyzed demonstrate that even though two quantities are correlated, this does not mean that one quantity caused the other. And this is one of the most misunderstood and misapplied uses of statistics. And like we look at in AP stats, we look at the idea of polio and ice cream, and also So what we look at the study in which they find that there's a strong relationship, there's a strong correlation between polio and ice cream, because when people got polio was around the time people had a lot of ice cream. But there was no way to prove that someone that had a lot of ice cream got polio. So that would be an example of causation, and there was no causation. Strong correlation between polio and ice cream, but one causing the other does not happen. So causation is when one event affects the outcome of a second event. A correlation is a necessary condition for causation. So in order for me to prove causation, I need a correlation. But a correlation is not a sufficient condition for causation. Okay. So while determining a correlation is straightforward, using statistics to establish causation is very difficult. So here's a couple scenarios that we'll look at. Many medical studies have tried to prove that smoking causes lung cancer. So is smoking a necessary condition for lung cancer? Why or why not? And what we'll say is no. People can have lung cancer without ever smoking. Okay. Another thing that we could ask is smoking sufficient condition for lung cancer? Why or why not? And we would say no, not every person who smokes gets lung cancer. Is there a correlation between people who smoke and people who get lung cancer? So is there a relationship that exists between people who smoke and who get lung cancer? And we would say yes. Smokers have a much higher incidence of lung cancer than non-smokers. And then the last question is it true that smoking causes lung cancer? If so, how was it proven? Well, yes. Scientists have proven that smoking causes lung cancer by first finding a high correlation among smokers and people who have lung cancer, and then by discovering that smoking damages the tissue, which encourages the development of lung cancer. Okay. So what I'm going to ask you guys to do is I have another example that I'm going to ask you guys to walk through. Just try them and just write down your comments, and I'll make sure I get back to you guys. Have a great day.